What's good, everybody? Happy week 5. Wow. Week 4 was absolutely insane. I mean, I just feel like the weeks just keep getting better and better. And, um, you know, there's some good things and some bad things, obviously. But, um, you know, this we definitely had a mixture. We definitely had some pretty good football games, um, some very high scoring games, and unfortunately a couple big injuries. So first off, I wanted to note just some one of the history something in the history books. The Cowboys Packers. We have our first tie. Cowboys and Packers ended up in a tie. That's the first one this year. It was the second highest tie scoring game in NFL history. The first was, I believe it was a 54 to 54 game. It was like back in like the 70s or something. I don't really remember when, but yeah, but that was the second highest scoring game that ended in a tie. That game felt like it was never going to end. And honestly, they should just put a second overtime in that game. That was a great game. Um, and so yeah, then we definitely had some big injuries that I'll cover eventually. But yeah, for now, let's jump into it. Congrats to everyone that did win, and congrats to everyone. Well, not congrats to everyone that lost, but if you want to be congratulated, you can. I'll congratulate you. Let me know if you like the face cam. I decided to spice it up a little bit, so just so you can kind of get my actual reaction. Um, so looking here at the standings, congratulations. Everyone has at least one win. So we're done with the donuts. No more donuts for everyone. So congrats. We also have only one remaining undefeated team, which is myself. That's great. I'm trying to regain my championship. I need that back. So I'm very happy with the good start. But taking a look over at the standings here, over on the east side, we got Corey and Dan both at 3-1, and then the rest of the guys are at 1-3. So this division, it's a little kind of ran by two people right now, but still got plenty of ball left. And don't forget, this is the start of bye weeks. So this could have a big impact on games that are won or lost. So this is where a good bench will come into play. So so it's still anybody's game. We're not nowhere near anybody like that's making playoffs, not making playoffs. It's still there's plenty of football left. We got 10 more weeks left. So and then moving on over to the West, I lead the division myself at 4-0. Right behind me, though, is the Bubble Bass at 3-1. Tybal picked up a win, 2-2, and then Ant and Trayvon out at 1-3. So, like I said, still anybody's game. And there'll be plenty of opportunities where you'll be facing like head to head, to kind of put yourself within a game or two of some of these folks here. So, alrighty. So moving on over to the last week here. So we'll take a look at the scoreboard here. We'll go to week 4. All right, I want to start with the game of the week for sure. Game of the week by far were the two heavyweights at the moment. They were both undefeated, 3-0 and 3-0 going in. And, I was definitely a little nervous because, you're facing off against somebody who also hasn't lost. But look at the final score. 150.76 to 150.66. 0.1. I mean, it really doesn't get any better than that when you're talking about the two heavyweights going at it. It really doesn't get better than that. So, I mean, that is like the closest you can be. And, it really came down to that Packers game, the Packers-Cowboys game. There was when Dak threw that ball to Tolbert, and let him at like the 3 yard line or something like that. That made Dan get to the 150.66. So I was like, okay. So, they tried running it in with Javonte, and they couldn't do it. The next play, Dak decides to try to run it in. Immediately, for the no gain, Micah, of course it's Micah, it was counted as a sack, stops him, but he gains no yardage. Because of that, he didn't gain the 0.1 point for the yard. So because of Micah actually saved me, and we didn't end up in a tie or anything. So probably could have won, honestly. So that I just wanted to just note that was pretty crazy. And this was a hell of a match. So great job, Dan. That this is one of the best matches I've ever been in. So very cool. But just looking at the stats overall here, wanted to know something very big. Fortunately for the Giants fans and for myself, Malik Neighbors did suffer a torn ACL. Man, this year has been so rough when it comes to injuries. With James Conner, Neighbors, Joe Burrow, CeeDee Lamb being injured, Mike Evans. A lot of the big player names are injured this year. The injury bug is, giving Kittle uninjured reserve. So it's definitely, a lot of like new faces are stepping up into the fantasy world now. So unfortunately for Neighbors, that really hurts, especially, being a first round pick. And, I would have loved to see the chemistry with Jackson Dart. So, but it is what it is, but that's what happens. So, but anywho, apparently it didn't matter too much. So just looking at here, how about George Pickens? 33.4 fantasy points. It was 8 catches, 11 targets, 134 yards, and it should be 2 touchdowns there, but 2 touchdowns. Really stepped into that role, that CD being the number 1 receiver, and, until CD comes back, he will definitely be, the number 1 target for Dak, which is great. And then Omarion Hampton, 27.5. This guy, he's going to be a stud. He 12 carries, 128 yards, a touchdown. He had like a 53-yard touchdown too. So great to see Hampton and the Chargers. They have that run game. He's the clear-cut workhorse bell cow 3-down back. So great to see. So a little bit of a struggle game for Jonathan Taylor, but ended up putting a 14 fantasy point game. He actually had a 53-yard touchdown nullified, so could have had more, but yeah. Overall, great showing from my folks. Yeah, let's move on over to Dan's side. How about Dak? Not even trying to be biased, but Dak is playing at an elite level right now. You really can't say he's made some poor decisions. Now, granted, this is sort of what he does during the regular season, and when it matters most, kind of folds, but whatever. But no, it's still great to see, though, that, he's actually starting to use his legs a little bit more, and, yeah. He kind of became more of a pocket passer last year, but now he's using his legs. He lost some weight. He's actually playing at a pretty elite level. He had 30 fantasy points there against Green Bay. They have a very solid defense. So great to see Dak, and if he keeps it up, he could be a starting caliber quarterback. Bijan 28. He had like a he had like a pretty. It was no, that was Bucky. Bucky had the 72-yard catch and run. We got to be careful of Bucky here. He apparently was getting an MRI this past yesterday. I'm gonna see if they have any news on him. No, it was just sustained an injury. Yeah, so he's getting an MRI. He had an injury, so not really sure what his status is for next week, but something to note. But yeah, overall, I mean, and unfortunately, benching DK with 23. That's unfortunate. I mean, I probably would have done the same thing anyway, just because going up against Minnesota and the defense that they just had the 32 points um, last week with Isaiah Rodgers. So I don't blame him for benching them. And the Colts have been playing very well. So overall, great matchup, Dan. And yeah, before we move on to the next uh, the next matchup, I just wanted to show you all another big injury we had was Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill torn multiple ligaments, including his ACL, so I'm guarantee you his season is over. Seemed pretty happy about it when he was being carted off, which I don't blame him. I wouldn't want to get past it from Tua either. That was brutal. Um, yeah, that leg was brutal there. So, oh, oof. Just a little way it was bent, so dislocated his knee too. So yeah, that was pretty brutal. So that's a tough loss, I believe. Actually, it might be Tybo. Oh no, it's Ant. It's actually Ant. Ant has Tyreek Hill. So actually, perfect segue. Moving on to the next match. Um, we have Tybo taking on Ant here. So Ant unfortunately had lost Tyreek Hill. Yep, that's return 2-9. So he's out for the year, which makes Waddle and Achan pretty much the only offense you have really at the moment for Miami. But yeah, they still got the win. It was close, but they still got the win. All right, so moving on here, Tybo here. Let's look over on Tybo's side. How about Josh Jacobs, 31 against the rough Dallas defense, but 2 touchdowns. Definitely his best performance of the year so far. But what can you say? That's Josh Jacobs. He's definitely been a workhorse his whole career, even when he was in Oakland. So yeah. Jordan Addison, first game back from the suspension. 15 fantasy points, not bad. I think that's only going to help Justin Jefferson's, gameplay, just because Jordan Addison could be more of a deep threat, and that kind of leaves more open for Jay Jettas there. But yeah, so it looks like Tybo had put in Sterling Shepard in place of Mike Evans, get 4 points, but Egbuka's running that offense like crazy, so. Overall, good showing. Interesting enough, Jared Goff only had 12 fantasy points, but they won 34-10. So, make that make sense. Now, I know the defense had a return touchdown, but yeah, but great showing, Tybo. Your players balled out when they needed it. It was a big game of Josh Jacobs. All right, Ant, moving over to you. Unfortunately, another injury. I just remember this. Lamar Jackson. I think he suffered. I think was it an ankle, hamstring injury. Not sure what his status is. It's up in the air right now as well. If it's hamstring, with his running that he does, he might be out potentially next game. So, Cooper Rush might be seeing a little bit more attempts. So that's something to monitor, though. It's a big loss, especially for Baltimore. I mean, Baltimore's already 1-3 to begin with. So, I wouldn't say it's more their offense; it's more their defense is the problem. You let Kansas City put up 37, that was supposed to be a premier matchup, but so unfortunately, he only had 10 fantasy points. But like I said, with the return of Jordan Addison, actually helped Justin Jefferson, 22 fantasy points. So, with Tyreek Hill now being out, Ant will have to replace Tyreek with another flex. And speaking of wide receivers, AJ Brown, he had I think he posted something as kind of shade as to pretty much get me out of here. I don't blame the guy, honestly. The Eagles offense is running a little strange right now. There's not a receiver that's playing well. I mean, it almost seems like Jalen Hurts is just doing everything himself. Fantasy-wise, you know what I mean? I mean, the Eagles are still undefeated, but it's you have Saquon, but then Jalen Hurts is dropping 25 fantasy points a game. He's just doing it all himself. He's not really, I don't know if it's there's some beef he's just getting covered. I don't know what's going on, but you know, going on last year, AJ Brown was like a top 5 fantasy wide receiver. So it's a little strange what's going on in Philly right now for fantasy wise. And hopefully when it, when needed, they could get him involved, because if they lose him, that's bad. So, and I just wanted to point out J.K. Dobbins. Good for him. He's having. Yeah, he had 11.5 fantasy points, but like when you look at the carries, he's getting the bulk of the carries. Look at that: 63, 76, 83, 101. That's a good for that guy, especially because like last year, like he had his injury. He's kind of like injured his whole career, but he was going to be a great running back coming into the league. I remember he was very hyped in college, coming in. So it's great to see, that he found a home in Denver. He's healthy, and it's paying off for the Broncos. So, but otherwise, congrats Tybo on that win. And sorry about the Tyreek loss, and hopefully you can fill that void there. All right, going to our 52. This is going to be our actually. Let's move on to our blowout of the week, a 52-point loss for Nick. Fortunately, Nick. Well, we'll get into it. But congrats on Vinny getting his first win. 134. It's a great showing by his guys here. Gino 9, but man, McCaffrey number 1 running back right now in fantasy. He is. They need to rely on him, because the minute he gets hurt, that offense is done. I mean, there was a close game with Jacksonville, but it wasn't surprising that they lost, just because there's nothing. There's really Purdy. Purdy might be hurt again. Juwan Jennings got hurt that game. Ayuk still isn't back. Kittle still isn't back. Pearsall got hurt. So there was like that 49ers offense right now is just McCaffrey. So yeah. Drake London had finally a good showing. Michael Penix finally was looking his way. 25 points. You drafted him. 26th overall, 3rd round, as expected. Caught 8 of 10, eight catches, 10 targets, 110 yards, and a touchdown. So great showing from Drake London. To develop more of that connection with Michael Penix. That game last night was brutal, but great to see Garrett Wilson still maintaining, his high intensity. They need to get him the ball more. I mean, I understand you got Brees and whatever, but you got to get Garrett Wilson that ball more, man. He's a playmaker, and he will make plays for you. But okay, but also great showing, Vinny, and good luck. All right, Nick. Fortunately, Jaylen Warren, I don't honestly blame him. It was an early game. An hour before the game, they pretty much said, you're not going to play. And, but could have been sleeping. I know. But it's unfortunate. But at the same time, that's fantasy. You gotta know when your players are playing, But if you were sleeping, I don't know. Whatever. It's okay. And of course, the minute he mentions Genti pops off for 33.5 and 3 touchdowns. Like I said, he's pretty much the only offense right now. Brock Bowers is Brock Bowers, but he's not performing like Brock Bowers level, Yeah, so that's unfortunate because, if you had played him, you still wouldn't have won, but it would have been closer. And points also matter too. So, yeah. So unfortunate, but that's fantasy life for you. And unfortunately, Packers defense with a -5 as well. So that's, I know. Trust me, I don't blame you for starting the Packers defense. I wouldn't have thought the Cowboys would play that well. Well, now that let's talk about Cam Scatterbo. Now that Neighbors is out on IR, he's out for the season. They're going to rely a lot on Cam. This is going to be a run-heavy offense. If you watch that game, Jackson Dart running the ball like he was doing a lot of QB sneaks. He even scored his own touchdown. This is going to be a run-first team for sure. I mean, the wide receiver core is so. I mean, you at this point, your number one is Wandale Robinson and then Darius Slayton, and then Theo Johnson as your tight end. So this is definitely going to be a run-first team. I expect Cam Scatterbo to be the workhorse back. With 25 plus touches for sure. So that's great hold to keep Cam. Honestly, I think eventually he was going to take over the back spot, to be honest, from Tyrone Tracy. But it's just, since Tyrone got hurt, he took over. And then Achane, even though that offense is weak, Achane still puts up numbers. He had 17 fantasy points, and they're going to rely on him a lot more. So, but overall, no score higher than 17, so definitely a rough week for Nick, but he could definitely bounce back on that. All right, we already talked about the nail biter. Let's talk about the next game. Trayvon taking on Corey. Corey with a whopping 160, most points of the week. And yeah, rightfully so. Because taking a look at, my lord, Puka Nacua. Puka Nacua is the number one wide receiver, but look at his 23, 27, 22, 36. They are just feeding Puka. Forget Devontae Adams. Matthew Stafford and Puka Nacua have that chemistry, and he is getting, I think he had, how many targets did he have? 15 targets and 13 catches. Like, that's a dream wide receiver. So Puka right now, make the case, could easily next year go top 5. I mean, absolutely. So great to see Puka at 36. And James Cook with 22, number 2 running back. And, he was drafted 4th round, probably a 4th, 5th round pick because, he had this production, but it wasn't like to this level. So Josh Allen definitely is trusting his running back more, especially with the loss of, with Diggs going to New England. They're relying a lot more on Cook, and he is producing. And how about Patty Mahomes doing what Patty Mahomes does? I think he had, 4 touchdowns? Yeah, four touchdowns thrown. I mean, they did get a boosted offense with Worthy back, so it definitely helps, and you can already see the results. So, so great showing from Corey's team, and he is putting up some numbers here the last 2 weeks. So, good job. All right, Trayvon. Jordan Love had a great game. This is the sad part. Jamar Chase. That offense is nothing without Joe Burrow. Jake Browning's just not the answer. Honestly, if I were them, I don't know if they can't just ride it out. Burrow's out for like 3 months, so they might need to look at potential new quarterbacks. But this Bengals offense is horrific. It's actually the worst offense statistically in the league right now. And you're probably looking at, for Jamar Chase, do you trade him? Do you sell low, buy low for Jamar at the moment? Because it's you can't bench him, but the last 2 weeks, 8 and 9 fantasy points. So and that's all that trend might continue. So it's very unfortunate, but number 1 picks, it's a curse. It's a curse. Trust me, I know. And then Brock Bowers, again, last 3 weeks, we're used to seeing him get these types of numbers, 8, 9, and 9. So a little underperforming, to somebody who was drafted. A lot of people drafted him second round, second, third round. So, yeah. But great to see Marvin Harrison kind of break out there too. Especially with Trey McBride getting the most of the carries, most of the receptions. With James Conner being out, hopefully Kyler can rely more on his receivers. But overall, 111 points, still good showing, Trayvon. But yeah, it's gonna be a rough week. So I don't know, maybe 1-3, bye weeks are starting. What do you do from here? So, and then moving on to our last game, which was close game, nail biter. Yeah, it's the nail biter, even though Dan and Maya's match was the nail biter, but this was still a close one. You know, so congrats to BMAC winning by 3.14. Yeah, 3.14 pi. He won by pi. And first person I want to note is Egbuka. Egbuka is by far right now, without Mike, is the number one wide receiver. It doesn't matter that Godwin came back. Egbuka still performed at an elite level and had 20 fantasy points. He's definitely, receiving 10. Look at that. His targets increased every week. So he's definitely the wide receiver one for Baker Mayfield right now. And they'll probably have those moments where now that Godwin's back, he'll have his games. Ibuka will have his, very similar to how it ran with Evans and Godwin. But what a great pickup, and has emerged as a clear favorite for Baker. And Judkins' first game as a full starter, 21 fantasy points. Even he had the only touchdown of the game for Cleveland. His ceiling is limited a little bit just because of how bad the Browns' offense is. So, can he sustain these, high projected amounts? Not really sure. It's going to be, will the Browns turn away from Flacco? We really don't know. So, for now, I would say Judkins is viewed as more of a flex option, really, until we see a change in that Cleveland offense. And now with the injury to Lamar Jackson, we don't know how long he'll be out for. How will this affect Derrick Henry? Look, oh my God, look at that. They even just said it right here. How it will impact. I didn't even see that. So it definitely could have an effect. Because now, depending, with Cooper Rush coming in at quarterback, he's not going to use his legs. So now opponents can game plan more for the run. So it could have a negative impact for Derrick Henry for his fantasy output. So something to keep in mind. Last few games, ever since that week 1, he hasn't been performing well. So, Still an RB2 because of because of the offense, but not that high end RB1 that he was last year. Looking over on Shane's side here, his players performed very well, honestly. Even with the trade, Javonte still put up 19 fantasy points. Xavier Worthy had 17 with his first game back, so very good to see. We had a really solid trade with him. Both of us, it worked out for both of us so far. So, but I love, kind of like going back to J.K. Dobbins. It's great to see Javonte, find a home in Dallas. And this is the level that we expected him when he was drafted as well. So it's great that, he's healthy again. And he is definitely performing, as you can see here. So number 6 overall running back. So great to see Javonte. And as a low round pick, I think I drafted him like in round 11 or something, round 10, round 11. So it was, because nobody knew who the number 1 running back was. So, and then Worthy, 17 fantasy points, 9, already got 9 targets, so Mahomes was looking his way, definitely needed it, especially, with pretty much Thornton was was becoming, a threat, but that didn't matter. Worthy became in and became the number one. So Rashee Rice should be coming back in 3 weeks now. So how will that impact Worthy? But overall, it was a good showing from Shane. Like I said, weird. It's so weird with these Eagles receivers right now. I don't know what to do because the Eagles are undefeated, right? So what do you do with your fantasy players? So it's tough. But overall, great showing, Shane. It was a close matchup. Thought Brees was going to have it there. He had 16, still performed, but with Braylon Allen out with a knee injury, we don't know how long his injury will be. This could be good for Brees. So, but overall, good matchup. All right, so let's look on to next week's matchups here. So going up first here, we have myself taking on Vinny, and obviously lineups aren't set and all, but we can look. So bye weeks have started, so the Falcons are on a bye week, so Drake London will be on a bye, so he will have to replace Drake London there. Hey, I'll do this actually is both better. So, yep. All right. So then moving. So as far as like who will win, I might lean over towards my side just because like the matchup. So like Saquon, Eagles are going up against Denver. McCaffrey going against. I think the Rams are undefeated. I think still. Cleveland has a. They have a gritty defense. So. Yeah. And over on my side, like Pickens playing the Jets. So the one thing about the Cowboys is actually interesting. The Cowboys right now have the number one offense, but also the worst defense. So that's interesting. But I think I'll lean over my side here. Just because matchup based and losing Drake London, who just had a breakout, who just had a 25-point performance, he's on a bye. You're gonna have to replace that. So we'll see. All right, moving on to the next one. We got Corey taking on Tybo. Whoa, 80-20, but I think Aaron Jones, is he projected to come back? No. So I think he's just putting there for now. I'm sure some Tybo will have to hit the waiver wire here. But anybody on bye week here? You got Josh Jacobs, unfortunately. Packers are on a bye. And Corey's got a couple bye weeks. He's got Steelers and the Chicago is also on a bye. So losing Roma Dunze for the week. He was able to fulfill it with Quentin Johnson, who by far is, it's legit. Quentin Johnson's performance is legit. That he is taken over. Lad McConkey has not being Lad. So. So DeAndre Swift. So currently right now, Tabo will need to replace his running backs. I think I'll still give the edge over to Corey just because you got Mahomes against Jacksonville, Nico against Baltimore, who's struggling on defense right now. So I will give the edge to Corey in this one. Yeah, because got some bye weeks here. All right, moving on. Another heavyweight matchup here. We got BMAC taking on Dan, 3-1-3-1. So this is big, especially for division leaders and stuff, because BMAC is one game behind me, and Dan and Corey are tied for 3-1. So currently, Dan will not have Bijan this week because he's on a bye. So he will definitely have to go and replace. And it looks like moving on to BMAX side, looks like he has decided to put in Kamara and bench Henry. And yes, that's what he did. Okay, perfect. So who I want to give the edge to here? I mean, Bijan's put up so many points for him. He's a big part of his offense. Whew. This is a tough one. I think I'm really going to lean. I mean, especially if Bucky doesn't play too, because he's questionable. If he loses both Bijan and Bucky for the week, I have to give it to BMAC, because that's two big parts of the offense. Hopefully we get Jaden Daniels back. That'll be a big boost for him. Yeah, looks like he said we're made on Sunday, but expect to return to action week 5. So he will get Jaden Daniels back. So that could be a big boost to him if he wants to play him. All right, moving on to Shane taking on Ant here. With Tyreek Hill being out, Lamar potentially being out, this could bode pretty well for Shane here. As far as like points, Keenan Allen, Hawkinson. So, will these guys hit the waiver wire? I think I'm going to give the edge here to Shane for sure, just because of potential injuries and then matchups here, and so I will lean towards Shane here. Okay. Moving on over to Nick taking on Trayvon as well. Don't worry, Nick. Jalen Warren's on a bye this week, so you're okay. And he also doesn't have Tucker Kraft, so he will definitely need to, and Darnell Mooney, so he will definitely need to go to his bench here, fill in those guys. And so then moving on over to Trayvon, he's got nobody on a bye. He's got Jordan Love on a bye, so looks like he put in Bo Nix. I mean, against Detroit, can this be it? Can Jamar Chase finally break out? I mean, we really don't know. I'm still gonna lean over towards Nick's side. Until we can see like majority of his offense and points would come from the Bengals here. And then the Colts are playing the Raiders. Colts are, they're for real too. So, we got to see some of Trave's guys step it up here. They got to step it up. So, I'm still going to lean over towards Nick, but should be a pretty close matchup. If I have to give like who's probably going to have the closest matchup, probably myself and Vinny have the 50-50 matchup this week, just because since I lost Neighbors, I had to throw in Debo, and so we'll see what happens. But this is probably the 50-50 matchup of the week. Can Vinny not only so he got his first win this week, but this week can he take down the undefeated guy? I don't know. We're gonna find out. But everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. I love doing these, and hopefully let me know if you guys like the face cam. I can, continue to do that. I can take it off, whatever you guys like. Everyone, good luck this week. It's the first week of bye weeks. Make sure you're looking at your waivers. Any potential trades coming in. And yeah, we will go from there. So, all right, everyone. I'll see ya. Peace.